Good evening. I'm just setting off on my first adventure of 2024. Just leaving home, and at this time I always feel really torn between leaving my family and heading to the mountains. I know once I'm in the hills I'll absolutely love it, but at the moment just feel a little bit sad. Right, arrived at the caravan. I'm staying here tonight, and so improving forecast in the morning, so I'm not jumping up. So yeah, I'll see you in the morning. Welcome to the first episode of Rudolph's Mountains in 2024. 2024 started out pretty much as 2023 finished off, and that is very wet. A good chunk of the country is underwater. It's very wet here too. I've got a short walk planned today. The weather forecast is improving, so I'm going to set off around lunchtime. But first things first, I need to get myself organised, get changed, pack my bag, and then head down to where we are starting the walk. Right, that's taken a ridiculous amount of time to get ready, but we've only got a 6-minute journey down the road to the start point of the walk. So let's head down there and start today's adventure. So to start out, we've got a little yomp down a country lane for half a mile or so before we pick up our first path. Everywhere is very wet. So today I am heading up Foel Goch in the Arenigs. It's the last Arenig for me to do, and then I've completed this area. It's the first area I've completed in the videos, so it's a little bit of a landmark. During this episode I thought I'd chat about staying safe in the mountains when you're walking on your own. When I first started solo walking a few years ago, about 5 years ago now I guess, I was really nervous. I was convinced I was going to come into some sort of peril, and there's things you can do to reduce the risk and increase your confidence, so I'll chat about that a little bit later on. Right, I've reached the end of the path. that peters out over there. We're actually heading over that one over there behind me, but to do it, because there's a lot of boggy ground between here and there, and going off to the left and then following the ridge round, that's the plan. Right, I've come across my first problem. I need to be on the other side of the fence behind me. But it's a barbed wire fence in a bog. And even on the other side of the fence, looks really low lying and rough. So I think what I'm going to do is go up towards that forest up there and try and contour around. It's going to lengthen the route, and I'm already pushed for time, but yeah, I don't want to get stuck in the bog. So let's push on up here, see if we can get across this fence high up. So while we're skirting up the side of this fence, we can start our discussion about staying safe in the hills. And the first thing I would say is proper preparation and planning prevents poor performance, an awful lot of peas. But before I set off on a walk, I plot it carefully on OS maps, and then I look at the satellite view and compare where the paths are supposed to be with where they actually are, because they're not always the same. And also on the satellite view you can pick out boggy ground and things like that. So that's the first tip: plan your route carefully. For me, I upload it into my phone, download the map, so I don't need to use the data while I'm on the hill. Put my phone into airplane mode, bash your last days like that, and then navigate using my phone. I do carry a compass, but I don't carry a paper map anymore. Always used to, I never ever used it. And as a safety net, I also carry a spare phone with a map downloaded into it, and also a power bank. So with two phones and a power bank, I should be good for best part of a week if I absolutely needed to. I think we're coming across a stile, which is a good sign. Right, I'm back on the path that I was supposed to be on. Been going about an hour and 20 minutes, so I'm doing all right, but it still looks a long way away. So my second tip for solo walking is where you've talked about planning. Next one is being prepared, and that means assume the worst and have everything with you that you need if there's a problem. So you've got your navigation aids I talked about earlier. Then you need things like waterproof trousers, waterproof jacket, 2 or 3 layers depending on the season. So even if you were sitting still, you could stay warm. A first aid kit, an emergency shelter. But the other thing I'd recommend is always, before you set off, share your route with somebody. Tell them where you're going, what your plan is, what time you're planning to be back, and a time for them to panic if you haven't got in touch with them. That way, if you don't turn up like you should, people will know where to look. So the footpath I was following came across a stream that was in spate and couldn't get over it. So I was planning on turning off that path in 100 yards or so afterwards the stream anyway. So I've just turned straight up the hill. There's no real path, just a bit of a sheep trail to follow. And then I'll cut across at the head of the stream. Dear me, I'm well and truly in the bog zone. Everywhere I look is standing water and saturated. Each time I've tried to cross this stream, I've had to turn back. Oh, I'm going for miles out the way now. Just need to get over this little area here. That's where I need to be. But there's just this boggy section that's I've been trying to skirt around, but it just seems to be getting bigger. No dear. Yuck. Oh well, keep going. Oh, right, I'm across. I was a bit nerve-wracking. Spotted some quad bike tracks a bit further down the hill. Had to retrace my steps. And then just very carefully made my way over. Sunk up to my ankles in water, but it didn't come over the top of my boot. But I had to commit because I couldn't walk up and down that bank any longer. Just not enough time for that sort of thing. So after that little bit of worry, now I'm over, feeling quite good. But I need to get back on route now, so I shall consult my map, find out where we should be. Right, I've reached the top of the climb, turned 90 degrees right, mole behind me. That's not a Nuttall, 549 metres I think that one is. And so now I'm actually heading towards the mountain. I've been sort of skirting around it so far. Well, now I've made this turn, I'm pretty much heading straight up. And hopefully I've done the worst of the bog. Oh. Anyway, my next tip for walking on your own is about food and water. So I always carry loads of food. If you're planning to be out for lunch, take your evening meal as well. If you're planning to be out for a day, take an extra meal for breakfast. Because if you haven't got enough food, it's not so much energy you run out of. In my experience, it's things like getting cramp, which are the problem. Also take plenty of water. Obviously more than you think you need. And an emergency life straw or water filter in your bag. They're very small, don't take up much space. And if you're struggling, you should be able to find a water source somewhere if you're desperate. Right, and across another boggy bit. Oh my word. Arenig Fower, nestled in cloud behind me, looking gorgeous. Dear me, I'm going to follow this fence for a bit and hopefully manage to stay out of the worst of the water. So far we've talked about lots of ways to prepare and plan your solo walk. And what this has all been about really, by being extra cautious, is about giving you confidence. So what gave me confidence to go out at first was the fact that I was prepared for every eventuality I could think of. So the next step for me really was to start doing some easy walks I've done before. So the final preparation to be done before you head out on a solo walk, or any walk for that matter really, is the weather. I look at the Met Office and MWIS, Mountain Weather Information Service, compare them both and use those to guide me as to whether or not it's safe to go out. And while you're building your confidence at first, you want to save yourself for good days, and maybe pick popular hills where there's other people about while you build your confidence. I've just paused because there's a stream running down the path, so I'm trying to work out the best way to get over it. Oh, at long last, I'm approaching the final pull up Foel Goch. It's just over there. So hopefully, maybe 20 minutes from now, I'll be on the top. It's 2 o'clock, so really I'm behind schedule. I need to review the map when I get to the top and make sure I'm taking the most efficient route down and not got any stream crossings to do. In some ways, it'd be better to go the way of return the way I've just come, because at least I know I can get across everything there. But it has been grim, so the thought of doing it again is not very pleasant. But let's get to the top first and then reassess the situation. Wow, whew. Here we go, top of Foel Goch. Wow. Let me turn you around and show you what I can see. There's Arenig fucking Arenig fire over there. That's the way I've come up. Right, let's find some shelter and have some lunch. Right, I've sat and had my lunch, reflecting on the start of a new year. And as I do every year, I look forward positively, try and make this year the best year it can be, and try and have a positive influence on all the people I interact with during the year, whether that be my family, friends or colleagues in work. Always trying to have a positive influence on everything really. I think when you're in the mountains, if you can make sure you leave no trace, pick up any litter that you see, you can have a positive impact on the environment. If you're going camping or touring in the camper van, try and buy your food locally, eat out, buy your fuel locally. All helps that local economy and helps justify you being there. There's a lot of bad feeling towards people sleeping in lay-bys in camper vans, and that's because of a tiny minority that dump rubbish or waste, and they're the ones that people remember. And so it's important that people that don't make that sort of mess do try and have a positive impact to try and counteract that. Right, anyway, I've got an hour and a half until sunset. It is a shorter route down than it was up, and a good chunk of it on the end is on fairly big paths and on the road, so I'll be fine, but I can't linger. I'm gonna have to crack on. So I'm gonna very quickly get Daisy out for a quick summit tour, and then it'll be get down as quick as we can. So Daisy, first tour of 2024. Over to you, sausage chops. Thank you, Daisy. Right, I'm leaving Foel Goch behind, the last of the Arenigs, and heading on down. Sunset is in an hour's time, which should be okay, but I'm really going to have to get my finger at going down, so I'm not going back in the dark. I have to say, it's making me nervous, dropping down and down and down into the valley, bearing in mind just how much rain we've had and how boggy it's been so far. But that's all part of the adventure, isn't it? Let's see how this, so far it's been quite good, this path. It's only a little sheep trail, but it hasn't been too boggy, and it's been reasonably well defined, so you can follow it. But we're dropping now to the lowest point in the valley, which is, as I say, a bit of a concern. Holy cheese, that was terrifying. Came across this big expanse of grass. As I walked across it, I just sank. And if I stopped moving, I just sank deeper and deeper and deeper, so I just keep pushing on. Oh, knowing that I could have been pushing onto my doom. So yeah, very boggy, but nothing yet that's stopped me moving forward. Although it has scared me a few times. Oh God, it's so deep. It's half an hour since I left the top. I'm making good time. Probably 2/3 of the way back to Standard Van, and only, I reckon, about 10 minutes or so from where we reach a proper path. Although I was on a proper path at the beginning of the walk, and that was totally flooded and boggy, so it doesn't mean anything, does it really? Look at that view over there as the sun's going down. Absolutely beautiful. Wow. I tell you, just over the 2,000 feet mark, you think it'd be easy, wouldn't you? But this little mountain has been a real challenge, mostly because of the condition of the ground being so wet. But wow, it's got me heart pounding, and as is most always the case when you're nearing the end of the walk and you feel like the danger's behind you, I get such a buzz, such a high. So I feel on top of the world now. Feels great. And so, finishing off my little chat about getting into the mountains on your own, the final bit of advice really is you know, do all your preparation, play it safe, but then go for it. Believe in yourself, you can do it. And the joy I have in the mountains now is very special, so go for it. Right, I'm almost back at the road, and then I've got a mile or more on the road back to the van, which I won't bother videoing because it's not very exciting. Oh, look what I'm walking in now. Oh, lovely jubbly. Oh, it's been a real adventure today, really enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed it too. Hopefully going out for another walk tomorrow, so all being well I'll have something for you to follow this up in a couple of weeks time. But thanks again for joining me. Again, Happy New Year to you, and hope you'll join me next time out. How relaxing is that?